That morning, no one expected a single act of defiance to change military history. What began as routine training became a moment every soldier on base would remember, and one that would test the difference between following orders and doing what's right. The sun hung low over the Nevada desert, casting long shadows across the training grounds of the Naval Special Warfare Base. Dust swirled in lazy eddies as the platoon assembled in formation, boots scuffing the packed earth in precise rhythm. Lieutenant Commander Elias Grant stood at the front, his SEAL team arrayed behind him like a coiled spring. 6 operators, each a veteran of deployments from the sands of Iraq to the mountains of Afghanistan. Their uniforms were starched and spotless, BDUs tucked into boots polished to a dull gleam despite the grit in the air. The faint hum of a distant Black Hawk echoed from the horizon, a reminder that this was no drill without purpose. Grant's gaze swept the line, lingering on Petty Officer First Class Marcus Hale. Hale was the handler, the quiet anchor of the unit's K-9 team. At 34, with a jaw set like carved granite and eyes that missed nothing, Hale had earned his place through years of unyielding discipline. His partner, Rex, a Belgian Malinois with a coat the color of burnished copper, sat at heel beside him, ears pricked forward, nostrils flaring at the scent of creosote bushes carried on the breeze. Rex's tags jingled softly with each controlled breath, a sound as familiar to Hale as his own heartbeat. They had bonded during Hale's first tour, Rex detecting an IED that saved the squad from ambush. That loyalty ran deeper than ranks or regulations. It was the unspoken pact that defined them both. "Platoon, attention!" Grant's voice cut through the morning stillness, sharp and commanding. The men snapped to, heels together, shoulders squared. Rex didn't flinch. He was trained for this, his focus mirroring Hale's. Today's exercise, perimeter sweep and threat simulation. Hale, your team takes point on scent detection. We move out in 5. Questions? None came. The chain of command was ironclad here, forged in the fires of selection and sustained by mutual trust. Hale gave a curt nod, his gloved hand resting lightly on Rex's harness. The dog leaned into the touch, a subtle press of muscle against leather, acknowledging the cue without a sound. Around them, the base stirred to life. The crackle of radios from the command tent, the metallic tang of gun oil from cleaning stations, the low murmur of orders passed down the line. This was the rhythm of their world, predictable, rigorous, a bulwark against chaos. As the team double-timed toward the mock village outskirts, the desert heat began to build, seeping through their gear like an unwelcome guest. Hale kept Rex on a loose lead, the dog's paws padding silently over the cracked ground. The exercise was standard, simulate a hostile incursion, with Rex tasked to sniff out hidden caches or mock explosives. Grant's briefing had been clear, efficiency above all, no deviations. Hale trusted that. He'd seen too many good men sidelined by hesitation. They reached the perimeter fence, a chain-link barrier topped with razor wire that stretched toward the old water tower looming in the distance. The structure was a relic from the base's early days, rusted and abandoned, its shadow stretching like a sentinel across the scrubland. No one used it anymore. Regulations deemed it structurally unsound after a seismic survey 2 years back. Hale's eyes flicked to it briefly, noting the faint creak of metal in the wind, but he refocused on the task. Rex's nose was already working, head low, tail stiff as he quartered the ground. "Clear on Sector 1, Hale reported into his radio, voice steady over the static. "Moving to Sector 2. "Affirmative," came Grant's reply. "Keep it tight. Intel suggests possible insider threat." The words hung in the air, a thread of tension woven into the routine. Hale advanced, Rex pulling slightly ahead, his harness taut. The dog's behavior was textbook, alert but controlled, muscles rippling under his vest. They cleared the first mock building, a plywood facade scarred from past drills, then pushed toward a dry wash. That's when it started, a faint whine from Rex, not the trained alert bark, but something primal, low in his throat. Hale knelt, hand on Rex's flank. "Easy, boy. What's got you?" The dog's eyes locked on the water tower, nostrils flaring wider, a shiver running through his frame. Hale scanned the horizon, nothing but heat haze and the tower's silhouette. Regulations were clear: report anomalies, but don't chase ghosts. Still, Rex's instincts had saved lives before. Hale hesitated, the weight of the lead in his palms suddenly heavier. From the ridge, Grant's voice crackled again. "Hale, status." "All clear, sir," Hale replied, forcing the words out. But as he stood, Rex strained toward the tower, a soft howl escaping, unbidden, urgent. The sound carried across the desert, drawing eyes from the team. Whispers rippled through the ranks, boots shifting uneasily on the gravel. Grant appeared moments later, his expression hardening as he approached. "What's this? Your dog's off script, Hale. Reel him in. We don't deviate without cause." Hale met his commander's gaze, the sun glinting off Grant's insignia. Rex's howl faded into a persistent whine, his body language screaming what words could not. The platoon watched, the air thick with unspoken questions. Duty demanded obedience. The bond with Rex demanded trust. In that suspended moment, Hale felt the first fracture in the chain, a moral fault line cracking open beneath the ordered facade. The exercise ground to a halt as Grant signaled a pause, his radio summoning the base commander. Hale clipped Rex's lead shorter, murmuring reassurance, but the dog's focus never wavered. The water tower stood silent, its shadow deepening as the sun climbed higher. What Rex sensed remained hidden, but the howl had already echoed beyond the training grounds, stirring doubts in the hearts of men bound by oath. By midday, the base buzzed with quiet speculation. Hale reported to the ops tent, Rex at his side, while investigators pored over logs. Grant pulled him aside, voice low. "If this is nothing, it could cost you, Hale. Chain of command isn't flexible." "I understand, sir," Hale said, his hand steady on Rex's head. But inside, the dilemma coiled tighter: obey and silence the instinct that had defined his service, or push forward and risk everything. The desert wind picked up, carrying the faint scent of rust and something indefinable, as the first threads of conflict began to unravel the routine they all relied on. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the base, turning the air into a shimmering haze that distorted the horizon. Petty Officer Marcus Hale stood outside the ops tent. Rex pressed close to his leg, the dog's warmth a steady anchor amid the rising murmur of activity. Technicians in olive drab coveralls swarmed the perimeter, their boots kicking up puffs of dust as they recalibrated sensors and reviewed footage from the morning's exercise. The chain of command had activated protocol. Any anomaly during training triggered a full sweep, no exceptions. Hale's report had been logged. K9 alert, unsubstantiated. Target, water tower. But the words felt inadequate, like describing a storm by its first gust. Lieutenant Commander Elias Grant emerged from the tent, his face etched with the lines of a man who had stared down worse than a dog's hunch. He motioned Hale closer, away from the cluster of junior operators, pretending not to eavesdrop. "Walk with me," Grant said, his voice a low rumble over the crackle of nearby radios. They moved toward the edge of the compound, Rex trotting obediently. His tag silent now, but his ears still attuned to every shift in the wind. The scent of creosote mingled with the sharper tang of diesel from idling Humvees, a reminder that the base never truly rested. "You know the regs, Hale," Grant continued, eyes fixed on the path ahead. K9 teams don't chase shadows. Rex is gold in the field. Saved my ass in Fallujah. But this, it's a relic. Condemned after that quake survey. If he's picking up feral cats or bad wiring, it wastes resources. And resources mean trust. Hale nodded, his gloved hand absently stroking Rex's flank. The dog's muscles tensed under his touch. a subtle vibration that spoke volumes. "Understood, sir, but Rex doesn't false alert. Not like this." The words hung between them, respectful but edged with conviction. Hale had seen Rex ignore distractions 100 times, gunfire, flares, even the chaos of a breaching op. This was different, a focused pull, nostrils flaring at something metallic and elusive carried on the thermals. Grant stopped near the fence line, the razor wire glinting like teeth in the light. Beyond it, the water tower loomed, its cylindrical form scarred by years of neglect, paint peeling in ragged strips to reveal rust-eaten steel. Vines of dried ivy clung to the base, and a faint drip echoed from somewhere inside, amplified by the hollow structure. "I've got the base commander breathing down my neck," Grant said, turning to face Hale. "Last thing we need is a wild goose chase pulling teams from real prep. You're solid, Hale. Don't let loyalty blind you to the chain." The emphasis on loyalty landed like a quiet challenge. Hale met Grant's gaze, the sun casting harsh shadows across both their faces. Loyalty to the team, to the mission, that was the SEAL ethos drilled into them from Bud S. But Rex was more than gear. He was the extension of Hale's senses, the one who had pulled him through the dark after losing his spotter in Helmand. "Permission to run a solo check, sir. Just Rex and me. Won't touch the tower, visual only." Grant hesitated, his jaw working as he weighed the request. The wind picked up, rattling the fence and carrying a distant howl from the scrub. Coyotes, maybe, or just the desert's own voice. Finally, he nodded once. 1 hour. Report back clean, or we shut this down. And Hale, keep it off the logs until we know something. Affirmative. Hale saluted sharply, the motion crisp despite the heat soaking through his uniform. As Grant strode back to the tent, Hale unclipped Rex's lead partially, giving the dog room to work. They approached the fence, Hale's boots sinking into the soft sand at its base. Rex moved with purpose, nose to the ground, circling the perimeter where the wire met earth. Hale scanned the tower through binoculars, its ladder rungs warped, the access door padlocked and chained, faded warning signs fluttering like ghosts. Nothing stirred. Yet Rex grew more insistent, pawing at a section of fence where the chain link sagged slightly, as if pried once and hastily repaired. "Easy," Hale murmured, kneeling to examine the spot. His fingers traced the wire, cold metal, but with faint scratches like tools had been used recently, not standard maintenance. The base crew marked their work with tags. A prickle ran up his spine, the first whisper of something beyond routine. Rex whined again, pressing his muzzle against the fence, eyes locked on the tower's shadowed underbelly. Hale keyed his radio softly, voice barely above the static. "Hale to Ops, perimeter anomaly at Sector 3, possible tampering, request backup for visual confirm." The response came quick, Grant's tone clipped. "Negative. Finish your sweep and return. We're standing down the exercise." But as Hale stood, a low rumble echoed from the tower, not wind but machinery, faint and mechanical, like a pump straining to life. Rex's hackles rose, a deep growl building in his chest. Hale's hand went to his sidearm instinctively, the weight reassuring against his thigh. The sound cut off as abruptly as it started, leaving only the drip-drip of imagined water. He glanced back toward the base, figures moving in the distance, oblivious. Reporting this could escalate, pull in MPs, disrupt the platoon's rhythm, ignore it, and whatever Rex sensed might fester unseen. The dilemma tightened like a noose. Duty to Grant, to the unit, demanded he walk away. But the bond with Rex, the silent trust forged in blood and sand, pulled him forward. Hale clipped the lead fully, leading Rex along the fence, but his mind raced. By evening, as the sun dipped toward the mountains, painting the desert in bruised purples, Hale made his choice. He wouldn't log it yet, but he'd watch. The tower's shadow stretched long across the ground, hiding secrets in its folds, and Rex's instincts had never lied. Back at the kennels, Hale brushed down Rex under the harsh fluorescent lights, the dog's coat gleaming wet from a quick rinse. The scent of soap and wet fur filled the air, mingling with the earthy tang of hay bales stacked nearby. Other handlers nodded as they passed, their K9s settling into crates with contented sighs. Routine resumed, but Hale felt the fracture widening. Whispers had spread, Rex's howl at dawn. Now this. A junior petty officer clapped him on the shoulder. "Heard your mutt's got a sixth sense. Hope it's not ghosts out there." Hale forced a tight smile. Just doing his job. But as he locked the kennel gate, the base lights flickering on against the encroaching dusk, doubt settled in. Midnight loomed, and with it, the unknown. The chain of command held firm, but conscience stirred, quiet and unrelenting, in the spaces between orders. Midnight arrived like a thief, slipping over the base under a sky pricked with stars that offered no answers. Petty Officer Marcus Hale lay on his bunk in the barracks, the thin mattress doing little to blunt the concrete beneath. The air was still, heavy with the faint hum of generators and the distant call of a night bird. Rex's crate was in the corner of the handler's quarters, the dogs breathing a rhythmic counterpoint to Hale's own restless thoughts. He hadn't logged the afternoon's anomaly. Grant's orders echoed in his mind, a reminder of the chain's unyielding links. But sleep evaded him, chased away by the memory of Rex's growl, the faint mechanical rumble from the tower. Hale sat up, swinging his legs over the edge of the bunk. The room was dim, lit only by the red glow of an alarm clock on the wall. His teammates slumbered in their racks, chests rising and falling in the disciplined quiet of men who trusted the routine to keep threats at bay. He glanced at Rex, whose eyes gleamed open in the crate, alert as if sensing the unrest. "You feel it too, huh?" Hale whispered, the words barely stirring the air. The dog shifted, pressing his nose against the bars, a soft whine escaping. Unable to shake it, Hale dressed quickly. BDUs pulled on over his undershirt, boots laced with practiced efficiency. He grabbed his flashlight and a notepad from the desk, slipping out without a sound. The base at night was a different beast. Patrols moved in shadowed pairs, floodlights sweeping the perimeter like slow breaths. Hale nodded to the sentry at the door, who returned the gesture without question. Handlers often checked on their partners after hours. The gravel crunched under his boots as he made for the kennels first, confirming Rex was secure before heading toward the fence line. The old water tower cut a stark silhouette against the moonless sky, its rusted legs splayed like the bones of some forgotten giant. Hale approached cautiously, keeping low behind a cluster of supply crates stacked near the perimeter. The wind had died, leaving the desert in unnatural silence, broken only by the occasional creak of the chain-link fence. He scanned the area with the flashlight's narrow beam. Nothing out of place, yet the air carried a faint, acrid tang, like overheated metal or chemicals long sealed away. Rex's earlier fixation pulled him closer. Hale crouched at the sagging section of fence, fingers probing the wire again. The scratches were fresh, deeper than he'd noted before, with flecks of red-brown paint caught in the links, matching the tower's faded hue. His pulse quickened, steady but insistent, the training kicking in. Observe, assess, report. But reporting now in the dead of night meant bypassing Grant, risking accusations of freelancing. The SEAL code was clear: escalate through channels, never solo. A soft footfall behind him made Hale freeze, hand dropping to his knife. He turned slowly, beam catching the face of Ensign Tara Voss, a junior intel officer assigned to the unit's support staff. Her uniform was impeccable even at this hour, hair pulled back in a tight bun, eyes sharp in the flashlight's glow. "Petty Officer Hale," she said, voice low and even. "Couldn't sleep either." Hale straightened, killing the light. "Just checking the perimeter, ma'am. Regulations after an alert." He kept his tone neutral, but suspicion flickered. Voss wasn't on night duty. She stepped closer, glancing at the tower. "Rex's howl this morning. It's got everyone talking. And now this." Her gaze met his, probing. Voss had joined the base 6 months back, her reports on threat assessments always thorough. But Hale had heard murmurs, her family ties to command staff, whispers of pushing for faster promotions. Nothing substantiated, but in a unit where trust was currency, doubts lingered. "Nothing to report yet," Hale replied, clipping the words short. "Routine." Voss nodded, but her eyes lingered on the fence. "That tower's off limits for a reason. Structural failure risk. But if your dog's onto something—" She trailed off, the implication hanging. Hale felt the weight of it, ally or complication. Inviting her in meant witnesses. Sending her away felt like isolation. Before he could respond, a low howl pierced the night, not from the kennels but echoing from the scrub beyond the fence. Rex's signature unmistakable, raw and urgent. Hale's blood ran cold. The dog was crated, secure. Unless... He spun toward the base, but the sound came again, closer, pulling toward the tower's base. Voss drew her sidearm instinctively. The metallic click loud in the stillness. That's not right. Hale's mind raced. Had someone let Rex out? Sabotage? He keyed his radio, voice controlled. "Hale to command. Perimeter breach possible. K9 loose near Sector 3. Static crackled, then Grant's groggy voice. "Confirm. Standing by." But as they advanced, the howl morphed into a series of barks, frantic, drawing them to the tower's shadow. Hale spotted it then, a figure scrambling up the ladder, silhouetted against the faint starlight, with what looked like a duffel bag slung over one shoulder. The intruder paused, head turning, before vanishing into the access hatch at the top. "Contact!" Voss whispered, radioing it in. Alarms blared suddenly, floodlights snapping on, bathing the area in harsh white. The base erupted, boots pounding, voices shouting orders. Hale's heart hammered, but his movements were precise. He scaled the fence where it sagged, Voss covering him, her shots suppressed and warning only. At the tower's base, Hale found paw prints in the dust, Rex's fresh, mingled with human boot treads. The dog had been released. Somehow lured or followed the scent trail. "Rex!" Hale called, voice cutting through the chaos. From above, a metallic clang echoed, the hatch slamming shut. Then silence, broken by the whine of approaching vehicles. Grant arrived first, flanked by MPs, his face thunderous under the lights. "Hale, what the hell? You were cleared to stand down." "Sir, intruder confirmed," Hale reported, saluting despite the adrenaline. "Rex tracked it. He's out here somewhere." Grant's eyes narrowed, scanning the tower. "Voss, your report?" "Visual on suspect, sir. Entered the structure. Possible exfil route." The commander swore under his breath, signaling the team. "Secure the area. Hale, you and your dog started this. Find him. But if this blows up, it's on you for going rogue." Hale nodded, the reprimand landing like a weight. The platoon fanned out, flashlights sweeping, radios alive with clipped commands. Rex burst from the underbrush then, fur matted with burrs, straight to Hale's side, whining apologies in his canine way. Hale knelt, checking for injuries, none, just the wild glint in his eyes. "Good boy," he murmured, clipping the lead. As MPs cordoned the tower, helicopters thumped overhead, rotors slicing the night. The intruder was cornered, but the damage rippled. Questions about security lapses, how Rex got free, why Hale patrolled unsanctioned. Voss stood nearby, her presence now a variable in the unfolding investigation. Hale felt the moral vice tighten. His instincts had uncovered a breach, but at the cost of protocol. Loyalty to Rex had bridged the gap, yet the chain of command demanded accountability. By dawn, the suspect was in custody, a base contractor with ties to off-site suppliers, bag containing classified schematics meant for black market hands. Rex's nose had pierced the veil, his midnight howl the alarm no one else heard. But as Hale led his partner back to the kennels, Grant's words lingered. "You walked the line, Hale. Next time it might snap." The base stirred to life, the sun cresting the mountains, casting long shadows over the tower now swarming with techs. Hail brushed Rex down, the routine a balm, but the fracture in trust remained. Whispers spread through the ranks, of heroism, of overreach. Hale's choice had exposed a vulnerability in the system, forcing a reckoning. Duty had clashed with conscience, and in the quiet aftermath, the cost began to tally. Comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far stories of courage and integrity can reach. The morning after the midnight breach dawned crisp and unforgiving, the Nevada sun already baking the dew from the scrub grass around the water tower. Petty Officer Marcus Hale stood at attention in the base commander's briefing room, the air thick with the scent of fresh coffee and polished oak. Rex waited outside the door, kennelled in a holding area with the other working dogs, his presence a silent companion Hale could feel even through the walls. The room's fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting stark shadows on the faces of the assembled officers. Lieutenant Commander Elias Grant at the head of the table, Base Commander Captain Harlan Reyes to his right, and a cluster of MPs and intel specialists filling the chairs. Ensign Tara Voss sat across from Hale, her notebook open, pen poised like a weapon. Reyes cleared his throat, his voice gravelly from years of field commands. Petty Officer Hale, your actions last night uncovered a serious security lapse. The suspect, civilian contractor Elias Thorne, confessed to tampering with the tower's access for a drop point. Schematics for our drone countermeasures. Bound for foreign buyers. Good work, but procedure was bent. Explain your patrol. Hale kept his gaze forward, hands clasped behind his back, the fabric of his uniform still carrying the faint grit of the night's dust. Sir, Rex's alert during training prompted a visual check with Commander Grant's permission. The anomaly at the fence warranted follow-up. I was en route to confirm when the breach occurred. Grant shifted, his chair creaking under his frame. Permission was for a daytime sweep, Hale, not a midnight solo. You radioed in, but Voss's involvement raises questions. Who authorized her presence? Voss leaned forward, her tone measured. I was reviewing perimeter logs in the ops center, sir. Heard the alert and responded as protocol allows for intel support. Petty Officer Hale didn't solicit me. We converged. The room fell quiet, the only sound the scratch of a pen on paper from an MP jotting notes. Hale felt the weight of their stares, the unspoken accusation of freelancing hanging like smoke. In SEAL training, initiative was prized, but here, in the rigid hierarchy of base security, it could unravel careers. Rex's howl had pierced the night, saving the mission's integrity. But Hale's choice to act outside hours challenged the chain. Loyalty to his partner had driven him, yet duty to command now demanded he justify every step. Reyes steepled his fingers, eyes narrowing on Hale. Your K-9's instincts are noted. Thorne hid the docks in a false panel inside the tower, sealed with industrial adhesive. Rex must have caught the chemical off-gassing from a distance. Impressive, but this exposes gaps. How did Thorne cut the fence undetected? And how did your dog get loose from the kennels? Hale's jaw tightened, the question a fresh cut. Unknown, sir. Rex's crate was latched when I left the barracks. Paw prints suggest he was lured, or the lock picked. Suspicion rippled through the room. Grant's expression darkened. Lured? That's a leap. Could be coincidence. Dogs get restless. Hale, you pushed this from the start. If there's more to it, it points to internal issues. Voss interjected softly. Sir, the fence scratches match Thorne's tools from his truck, and kennel logs show a gap in handler rounds around 2300 hours. Junior staff oversight? The base commander nodded, signaling an aide to pull up a digital map on the screen. The tower's blueprint flickered to life, overlaid with timestamps from security cams. Red dots marked the breach points, timelines converging on Hale's patrol. Investigation's ongoing, Reyes said. Thorne's talking. Says he had an inside tip on blind spots. MPs are interviewing contractors. Hale, you're sidelined from duties until cleared. Grant, reassign his team. Sir? Hale's voice stayed level, but the order landed like a gut punch. Sidelined meant desk duty, reviews, the slow grind of bureaucracy that could stall a career. Rex would be reassigned to another handler temporarily, their bond tested by separation. The room's air grew heavier, the coffee's bitterness turning sour in Hale's throat. Grant met his eyes, a flicker of reluctant respect beneath the steel. It's protocol, Hale. Can't have questions lingering while we plug the holes. As the briefing adjourned, Hale saluted and exited, the door clicking shut behind him like a judgment. Outside, the base thrummed with midday routine. Humvees rumbling past, operators double-timing to the range, the sharp bark of commands echoing from the parade ground. He made for the kennels, boots steady on the concrete path, the sun warming his shoulders through the camo. Rex greeted him at the gate, tail wagging in controlled arcs, nose bumping Hale's hand for reassurance. The dog's fur was dry now, burrs groomed out, but his eyes held that same vigilant spark. Hale knelt, scratching behind Rex's ears, the familiar ritual grounding him. "Hang in there, boy. We'll sort this." But doubt crept in. The sidelining wasn't just administrative, it was a signal. Whispers would spread through the platoon, painting him as the loose cannon who bent rules for a hunch. Voss caught up as he stood, her steps quick on the gravel. "Petty officer," she said, voice low. "That wasn't fair. Your call saved those schematics. I vouched for you in there." Hale nodded curtly. "Appreciate it, ma'am, but the commander's right. Protocol first." He didn't trust her fully yet. Her quick arrival at the fence felt too convenient, her family connections a shadow in the intel world. Still, her support bought time. By afternoon, the public reckoning began in earnest. Word leaked to the base newsletter, a terse bulletin. Security incident resolved. Training protocols under review. Operators clustered in the mess hall at Chow, trays clattering as conversations turned to the tower. Hale sat alone at a corner table, picking at MRE-style rations, rubbery chicken and stale bread, the flavors muted by the knot in his stomach. A group of his teammates approached, led by Petty Officer Second Class Lena Torres, a breacher with a scar across her knuckles from a live fire mishap. "Heard you're benched," Torres said, sliding into a seat uninvited. Her voice was blunt, respectful. "Rex pulled a miracle out there. Towers sealed tighter now. MPs welding new plates." Hale met her gaze. "Just doing the job. Dog deserves the credit." The others nodded, but tension simmered. One, a wiry comms specialist named Ruiz, leaned in. "Grant's pissed about the optics, says it makes the unit look sloppy, but hell, if not for you two, we'd be explaining to Brass why Intel's walking out the gate." The words carried weight, loyalty from the ranks, but laced with the cost. Hale's defiance had exposed not just a breach, but fractures in oversight. Lax kennel checks, unmonitored contractors. As they talked, radios buzzed with updates, Thorne's interrogation yielding names, pointing to a ring with off-base ties. The institution stirred, investigations branching like veins under the skin. Evening brought the formal inquiry in the ops annex, a smaller room lined with filing cabinets and glowing monitors. Hale stood before a panel, Grant, an MP major, and a JAG rep from the regional command. Voss testified first, her account precise, timelines, visuals, Rex's role. Then Hale, recounting the night's events without embellishment. The howl, the figure, the pursuit. Questions probed. Why not wait for daylight? Did you suspect internal sabotage? Instinct, sir, Hale replied to the JAG. Rex's behavior aligned with prior saves. Delaying risked evidence dispersal. The major nodded slowly. Commendable, but unauthorized action invites scrutiny. Your record's clean. Commendations from 2 tours, but this tests the balance. Grant's silence weighed heaviest, his crossed arms a barrier. As the panel recessed, he pulled Hale aside in the hallway, the corridor's echo amplifying their words. "You're walking a razor, Hale. The brass sees heroism. I see a handler who prioritizes gut over orders. Rex is reassigned to Torres starting tomorrow. Prove this was clean, or it ends your lead spot." Hale absorbed it, the fluorescent buzz drilling into his skull. "Understood, sir. Won't let the team down." Alone later, under the stars blanketing the base, Hale walked Rex one last time before separation. The desert cooled. Wind whispering through the fence, carrying the faint rust of the tower now under guard. Paw pads soft on the earth, Rex pressed close, sensing the shift. Hale's hand trembled slightly on the lead, not fear, but the raw edge of conscience clashing with duty. The howl at midnight had changed everything, rippling through ranks and reports, forcing the system to confront its blind spots. But redemption demanded more. Accountability, not just for the breach, but for the choices that bridged loyalty and law. In the quiet, Hale murmured to Rex, "We hold the line, boy, whatever comes." The dog's head tilted, eyes reflecting the moonlight, a bond unbroken by orders. The base lights dimmed for the night, but the moral tension lingered, coiling tighter in the shadows. The days following the inquiry blurred into a haze of restricted access and shadowed glances, the base's rhythm unbroken on the surface, but humming with undercurrents of scrutiny. Petty Officer Marcus Hale reported to the administrative annex each morning at 0600 sharp, his boots echoing on the polished linoleum as he signed in for review duties. Rex had been reassigned to Petty Officer Lena Torres, the breacher's steady hands, a temporary home for the Malinois. But Hale caught glimpses of them during walks, Rex's gait unchanged, yet his ears flicking toward the kennels as if searching for the familiar voice. The separation gnawed at Hale like a dull ache, a reminder that loyalty in the ranks extended to partners as much as commands. But protocol severed bonds when questions arose. In the annex, Hale sifted through redacted logs under the watchful eye of a stone-faced yeoman, the air stale with the scent of ink and recycled paper. Folders stacked high on metal desks detailed perimeter patrols, contractor manifests, and kennel access records, endless columns of timestamps and signatures that blurred into accusations. Thorne's confession had peeled back layers. The contractor had exploited a blind spot in the tower's surveillance, bribing a low-level maintenance tech for the fence code. But the kennel breach lingered unresolved. Rex's crate latch showed no forced entry, only a subtle misalignment suggesting an insider's touch. Hale's notes accumulated, cross-referencing shifts. But each lead circled back to gaps in oversight, the kind that eroded trust from within. Lieutenant Commander Elias Grant summoned him midweek to the command office, the door's heavy click sealing them in a space lined with commendation plaques and a wall map pinned with colored flags marking ongoing ops. Grant stood behind his desk, sleeves rolled to elbows, the faint scent of aftershave cutting through the room's institutional chill. "Sit," he ordered, gesturing to a chair that creaked under Hale's weight. Rex's absence echoed here too, no warm flank at his side, just the empty space beside his boot. "The Jag's breathing down our necks," Grant said, sliding a tablet across the desk. The screen glowed with preliminary findings. "Your timelines linking Thorne's movements to a handler's off-hours entry. Your patrol timed perfectly with the breach. Brass wants to know if you tipped him off, or worse." Hale's spine straightened, gaze locked on Grant's insignia. "Sir, I logged every step. Rex's alert was the trigger. I followed protocol until the howl." Grant's eyes bored in, unyielding. "Protocol doesn't include midnight rambles, Hale. Voss corroborated your story, but her report flags inconsistencies. Your radio delay, her unscheduled presence. She's got pull, her father's on the Admiralty staff. If this smells like favoritism, it taints the unit." The words landed with precision, a probe into Hale's resolve. He thought of Voss's quick arrival at the fence, her sidearm drawn without hesitation, ally or opportunist. In the SEAL world, intel officers navigated shadows, but her vouching in the inquiry had bought him breathing room. "Understood, sir. I'll review the logs again. Find the thread." Grant nodded curtly, dismissing him with a wave. As Hale exited, the base corridor buzzed with midday traffic, techs hauling gear crates. Their boots thudding in unison, radios spitting clipped updates on a live-fire drill. Outside, the desert wind whipped sand against the windows, a gritty reminder of the isolation that amplified every doubt. Hale headed to the mess for a quick chow. Tray balanced with rehydrated rice and foil packets of tuna, the flavors bland against the tension coiling in his gut. Teammates nodded as he passed, but conversations hushed. Loyalty held, yet the sidelining cast him as the variable, the one whose instincts had disrupted the order. That afternoon, the reckoning escalated in the form of a unit-wide stand-down. Captain Reyes assembled the platoon on the parade ground, the sun slanting low to paint the ranks in golden edges. Operators stood at ease, BDUs crisp, the faint jingle of dog tags mingling with the creak of leather belts. Rex sat at Torres's heel, his copper coat gleaming, eyes scanning until they locked on Hale in the rear line. The dog's tail thumped once, a subtle betrayal of the bond that no reassignment could erase. Reyes paced the front, megaphone unnecessary in the disciplined quiet. "Last week's incident exposed vulnerabilities we can't afford. Contractor sabotage, internal lapses. It's a wake-up. Thorne's network runs deeper. MPs raided an off-base warehouse this morning. Schematics recovered, but trust is the real casualty." His gaze swept the formation, lingering on Hale and Grant. Petty Officer Hale's K-9 team flagged the anomaly. Commendable initiative, but it bypassed channels. We're implementing reforms, dual-verified kennel checks, AI-monitored perimeters, and mandatory cross-training for handlers and intel. Murmurs rippled, quickly quelled by a sharp, "At ease!" from Grant. Torres raised a hand for Rex, the dog responding with a low sit, but Hale saw the shift, his partner's focus wavering, nostrils flaring as if catching a ghost scent on the breeze. The announcement continued, Hale's status under review, pending full clearance, but his role in the recovery noted for commendation files. It was a half measure, public acknowledgement, laced with caution, the institution bending just enough to absorb the lesson without shattering. After dismissal, the platoon dispersed to the range, the crack of suppressed rounds echoing like distant thunder. Hale lingered, drawn to Torres, as she unclipped Rex's lead for a water break. The dog bounded over, muzzle bumping Hale's knee, wet nose leaving a cool imprint on his pants. "He's been solid," Torres said, voice low, her scarred knuckles flexing around the harness. "But he pulls toward the kennels every shift, misses you." Hale knelt, handcuffing Rex's jaw, feeling the steady pulse beneath the fur. "Miss you too, boy." The touch was brief, professional, but the dog's lean into it spoke volumes, the silent trust that had howled through midnight, defying the dark. Torres watched, respect in her eyes. "This reform? It's because of you two. Brass hates change, but they can't ignore a save like that." As evening fell, Hale returned to the annex, the fluorescent lights buzzing like persistent doubts. He pored over the latest MP brief, the maintenance tech implicated, a plea deal in exchange for names pointing to lax oversight in contractor vetting. Voss appeared at the door, uniform jacket slung over her arm, fatigue etching faint lines around her eyes. "New leads," she said, dropping a folder on his desk. "Thorne mentioned a handler contact, vague, but it clears your timeline. I pushed for the cross-check." Hale scanned the pages, timestamps aligning with his patrol. No overlaps, just coincidence sharpened by necessity. "Why the help, ma'am? Command's watching." Voss leaned against the filing cabinet, arms crossed. "Because the chain's only as strong as its links. Yours held when others frayed. And Rex, he's the real operator here." The admission hung, a bridge across the divide. Hale nodded, the weight lifting fractionally. Outside, the base lights flickered on, casting pools of yellow over the concrete paths. Helicopters thrummed in the distance, prepping for night ops, their rotor wash stirring the air. Hale's radio crackled with a summons, Grant, requesting a private update. As he gathered his notes, the moral tension eased into resolve. The defiance at dawn had sparked this, rippling through tribunals and reforms, testing not just one handler, but the system's core. By week's end, the panel reconvened in a smaller chamber, the air cooler now with the desert's autumn chill seeping through vents. Hale stood tall. Rex temporarily returned for demonstration. The dog's paws, silent on the tile, as he demonstrated a scent alert on a mock sample. The jag nodded approval. The mechanical rumble from the tower replicated in a controlled test. Rex's response, immediate, unerring. "Instinct validated," the Major concluded, sidelining lifted with commendation. Grant's handshake was firm outside, the corridor empty save for the echo of their steps. "You pushed the line, Hale, but it held. Rex stays with you. Reforms need your edge." Hale saluted, the motion crisp, relief threading through the discipline. As he led Rex back to the kennels, the tower loomed in the twilight, its fresh welds glinting like scars healed. The howl at midnight had echoed into legacy, forging quiet change, tighter protocols, deeper trust in K9 bonds, a reminder that conscience fortified the chain. In the handler's quarters, Hale settled Rex into his crate, the dog's contented sigh a balm. The base quieted, stars emerging overhead, but Hale knew the cost, vigilance eternal, loyalty the true command. The weeks after Hale's reinstatement unfolded with the deliberate precision of a post-mission debrief. The base's routines recalibrated around the tower incident, like a gear slipping back into place. Petty Officer Marcus Hale resumed handler duties at dawn, his boots tracing familiar paths from the kennels to the training fields. Rex at his side once more, the Malinois' stride syncing effortlessly with Hale's, as if the separation had been a mere pause in their rhythm. The desert air carried a sharper bite now, autumn winds scouring the sand and rattling the chain-link fences, while the scent of sagebrush mingled with the oily tang of freshly applied weld on the water tower's reinforcements. Hale felt the shift in the platoon, nods of respect from operators during morning PT, a quiet deference in the mess hall lines, but beneath it, the undercurrent of scrutiny lingered, a reminder that one howl had forced the institution to examine its own seams. Lieutenant Commander Elias Grant assigned Hale to lead a cross-training session that morning, integrating K9 teams with intel protocols, a direct outgrowth of the reforms Captain Reyes had announced. The platoon assembled on the mock perimeter, BDUs dusted with overnight frost, radios humming with pre-brief chatter. Rex sat alert at Hale's heel, his harness snug, nostrils testing the breeze that whispered hints of the tower's distant rust. Ensign Tara Voss joined the group, her tablet in hand, eyes scanning the lineup with the clinical focus of someone mapping threats. Hale caught her glance, a brief acknowledgement of their shared midnight convergence. No words needed. Just the subtle tilt of her head that spoke of alliances forged in crisis. "Listen up!" Grant barked, his voice carrying over the crunch of gravel under shifting boots. "This isn't drill for show. Hale's team takes point on scent integration with Voss's analytics. We simulate a breach, find the hidden cache before it walks. Questions?" The formation stayed silent, shoulders squared, the faint jingle of tags the only response. Hale gave Rex the hand signal, a fluid motion honed over years, and the dog quartered the ground methodically, paws padding soft against the packed earth. Voss narrated the exercise via radio, her updates crisp. Thermal scan clear on Sector 1, aligning with K9 vector. It was seamless on the surface, but Hale sensed the test woven in, Grant's eyes on him, measuring if the handler's instincts would clash with the new chain of command overlays. As Rex alerted on a buried mock device near the fence line, his bark sharp and contained, Hale marked the spot with a flag, gloved hands steady despite the memory of that sagging wire. Cache located, sir. Chemical residue matches Thorne's adhesive profile. The team converged, Voss confirming via her scanner, her voice steady over the static. Affirmative. Data syncs. 80% probability of insider vector. Grant nodded approval, but pulled Hale aside as the platoon reset. The sun climbed higher, warming the metal of their gear, casting long shadows that stretched toward the tower like accusatory fingers. "You're integrating well," Grant said, his tone measured, arms crossed over his chest plate. "But the MPs wrapped Thorne's ring yesterday. 3 contractors, 1 handler from maintenance. The kennel latch, picked by a kid chasing overtime, not sabotage, clears you fully." Hale met his commander's gaze, the relief tempered by the weight of what it implied. "Understood, sir." Rex's nose cut through it all. Grant's expression softened fractionally, a rare crack in the facade. "It did, but this reform push, it's your doing. Brass is rolling it base-wide. K9 alerts now trigger dual intel verifies, no solo patrols. You've got the ear of the captain now. Use it right." The words carried the mantle of legacy, Hale's defiance at midnight rippling into policy that fortified the unit. Yet as the session wrapped, doubt stirred. A junior MP approached during the cool-down, his uniform crisp, voice low. "Petty officer, a word? The inquiry file. Voss's logs from that night. They show her accessing Kennelcam's pre-breach. Routine check, she says, but timing's tight." Hale's pulse steadied, training kicking in. "Observe, don't accuse." Voss had been an asset, her testimony pivotal. But the shadow of her connections loomed. Was it coincidence or a deeper play in the intel game? He thanked the MP, filing it away. The moral tension coiling anew. Confront her and risk fracturing the fragile trust, or let the chain's mechanisms grind it out. By midday, the public reckoning unfolded in the ops center, a sterile room buzzing with monitors and the low whir of servers. Captain Reyes convened a review board, Hale and Voss summoned as key witnesses, the air thick with the scent of dry erase markers and cooling coffee from the pot in the corner. Operators from adjacent units filtered in for observation, their presence a nod to the incident's broader implications. Security lapses didn't stay contained. Rex waited outside, pouring idly at the door. His whine faint through the walls, a sensory pull. Hale felt like a tug on his lead. Reyes opened with procedural efficiency, his gravel voice filling the space. "The Thorne breach compromised assets worth millions. Reforms stem from it. Enhanced vetting, K9 intel fusion." Petty Officer Hale, your testimony first. How did Rex's alert integrate with the response? Hale stood, posture ramrod, recounting the sequence. The morning howl, the fence anomaly, the midnight pursuit. His words were clipped, factual. Emotion restrained to the subtle tightening of his jaw when mentioning the separation. "The bond with my partner flagged what scans missed, sir. Duty to the team demanded action within bounds." Voss followed, her account aligning seamlessly, but the MP's tip echoed in Hale's mind. As she detailed her radio logs, a flicker. Did her eyes dart to Reyes a beat too long? The board probed gently. Timings, authorizations. No accusations surfaced, but the room's tension hummed. Witnesses' notebooks scratching like whispers. Post-review, Hale cornered Voss in the corridor, the echo of departing boots fading. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting her face in pale relief. "Ma'am, the kennel cams, your access that night. MP flagged it." She paused, tablet clutched tight, her breath steady. Routine audit, Hale. I was cross-referencing Thorne's contractor logs. If I'd delayed, the breach might have gone dark. Her gaze held his, unflinching, but vulnerability cracked through, a hand trembling slightly on the device, the human cost of scrutiny in a world of rigid oaths. Hale weighed it, conscience pulling against suspicion. Understood, just the chains tighter now. For all of us. She nodded, a ghost of a salute. It is. Your push made it so. As evening descended, the base transformed under sodium lamps, their glow pooling on wet concrete from a brief desert shower. Hale walked Rex along the perimeter, the dog's fur damp and carrying the clean scent of rain on earth. Paw prints from patrols dotted the path, a map of vigilance. Grant joined them briefly, his silhouette sharp against the lit tower. Captain's signing off on your commendation tomorrow. Full reinstatement plus lead on the new K9 protocol team. Hale saluted. The motion held a fraction longer, gratitude unspoken. Thank you, sir, for the trust. Grant clapped his shoulder once, firm. Earned it. Rex, too. He departed, leaving Hale with the quiet expanse, the hum of generators a steady pulse. The howl that shattered midnight had woven into the fabric now. Reforms mentoring juniors on ethical alerts, loyalty to partners elevated in briefings, the institution's justice tempered by one handler's stand. Yet Hale knew the cost. Careers shadowed by doubt, bonds tested in silence. Rex leaned in, warm flank against leg, eyes reflecting the stars. A reminder that true command lay in the unspoken pact. In the kennels later, under the soft glow of nightlights, Hale settled Rex with a final brush, the bristles whispering through fur. The base slumbered, but transformation stirred, Hale's integrity a beacon, rippling toward redemption, the system's scars healing into strength. Conscience had bent the chain, not broken it, forging a legacy in disciplined shadows. If this story already has your respect, hit the like button. It helps the story of Marcus Hale reach those who still believe in honor. Months passed, like the slow grind of a deployment cycle. The Nevada base, evolving under the shadow of the water tower incident into a fortress tempered by revelation. Petty Officer Marcus Hale led the new K9 protocol team with the quiet authority of a man who had stared down the fracture in his own resolve. Dawn briefings in the ops tent now included Rex's demonstrations, the Malinois' precise alerts syncing with Ensign Taravos's digital overlays, their partnership a model for the reforms that had taken root. The desert wind still carried the faint metallic tang from the tower's reinforcements, a constant reminder etched into the landscape. But the air hummed with purpose. Contractor vetting tightened, kennel logs dual verified, and handlers trained to voice instincts through channels rather than shadows. Hale's days blurred into a rhythm of patrols and mentorship, his boots wearing paths from the kennels to the training fields where junior operators gathered, eyes sharp with the hunger of Bud-esque graduates. Rex trotted at his heel, harness jingling softly against the morning chill, his coat thicker now against the encroaching winter. During one session, Hale knelt beside a young petty officer named Ellis, the rookie's Belgian Tavuren whining at a mock scent line. "Trust the bond," Hale said, his voice steady over the crackle of radios from a nearby drill. "But log it. Chain's there for a reason, keeps us all standing." Ellis nodded, gloved hands steadying on his dog's flank, the gesture mirroring Hale's own with Rex years back. The platoon watched from the sidelines, Lieutenant Commander Elias Grant among them, arms crossed but his nod subtle, approving. The incident had reshaped him too. Grant's briefings now wove in case studies of ethical alerts, citing Hale's midnight stand as the pivot point without fanfare. No medals, pinned in ceremony, just the quiet accrual of respect, the kind that fortified careers more than brass. Voss integrated seamlessly into the protocols, her intel feeds now standard for K9 ops, the MP's flagged access from that night resolved as a procedural overlap, No malice, just the fog of haste in crisis. She and Hale crossed paths often, their exchanges clipped and professional, a shared glance during a perimeter sweep, her tablet confirming Rex's hit on a simulated breach. "Your push closed the loop," she said once, as they reviewed data in the annex, the room's monitors glowing blue against the dusk outside. Her hand steadied on the desk, no tremor now, the vulnerability of scrutiny forged into resolve. Hale met her eyes, the weight of trust rebuilt in the space between words. "Team effort, ma'am." Rex led the way. The dog lay at their feet, head on paws, ears twitching at the hum of servers, a silent sentinel, his howl at midnight etched into base lore, whispered in barracks' late shifts and mess hall cues. The institutional reckoning peaked at month's end with Captain Harlan Reyes's address to the full command staff. The auditorium filled with ranks, from SEALs to support crews, the air thick with the scent of polished boots and anticipation. Reyes stood at the podium, his gravel voice amplified over the speakers, the tower's blueprint projected behind him, red annotations marking the breach, green overlays the fixes. "This wasn't just a lapse, it was a test," he said, gaze sweeping the room. Petty Officer Hale's integrity, through his K9 partner, exposed it. Reforms roll out region-wide, fused alerts, ethical training modules. We learn or we falter. Applause rippled, restrained but genuine, operators exchanging nods as Hale sat in the rear, Rex crated outside under guard. Grant leaned over, voice low. "Your symbol now, Hale. Lead with it." The words carried the redemption Hale hadn't sought, his sidelining a distant scar. The commendation filed quietly, but the legacy blooming in policy and practice. Thorn's ring, dismantled fully, arrests off base, the schematics secured, the cost tallied in audits, not blood, a victory of vigilance over vulnerability. Post-address, the base stirred with implementation, new signage at the tower warning of monitored zones, handlers drilling dual protocols under Hale's guidance, even K9 units from adjacent posts rotating through for cross-training. Evening walks with Rex became Hale's anchor, the desert cooling under starlit skies, paw pads soft on dew-kissed gravel. One night, as helicopters thumped overhead for a routine extract, Hale paused at the fence line, the sagging wire long replaced with reinforced mesh. Rex pressed close, nose to the ground, then lifted his head with a contented huff. No alerts, just the peace of a system mended. Back in the barracks, teammates gathered around Hale during downtime. The low murmur of conversation laced with the clink of water bottles and the faint static of a tuned radio. Torres, now a protocol liaison, clapped his shoulder. "Heard Reyes name-dropped you in the staff brief. Rex gets his own vest patch soon, Midnight Sentinel or some brass idea." Hale chuckled softly, the sound rare but genuine, hand absently stroking Rex's ears from his spot by the bunk. "Dog earns it. We all do." The group nodded, the bond of the unit reaffirmed. Moral courage no longer a solo stand, but woven into the ethos. Duty tempered by conscience, orders informed by the quiet howl of truth. As winter gripped the base, snow dusting the peaks beyond the horizon, Hale's transformation solidified. He mentored Ellis through a certification, the rookie's first independent alert earning a salute from the platoon, Hale's presence a steadying force. Voss contributed a module on Intel K9 fusion, her father's influence channeled into broader reforms rather than shadows. Grant assigned Hale to oversee the tower's decommission, structural demo scheduled, the relic yielding to progress, its secrets buried in archived reports. In the quiet of a pre-dawn patrol, Hale and Rex circled the site one last time, the wind carrying the crisp bite of frost. The dog's breath fogged in rhythmic puffs, mirroring Hale's own, their shadows merging on the concrete. The defiance that began with a howl had rippled outward, sparking quiet justice. Careers realigned, vulnerabilities sealed, loyalty elevated from bond to doctrine. Hale became the symbol not through acclaim, but through the restraint of his service, the handler who chose conscience within the chain, proving the system's strength lay in its moral core. The base lights flickered on as the sun crested, bathing the grounds in pale gold. A new day under reformed orders. Rex's tail wagged once, ears pricked forward, ready. Hale clipped the lead, the click a pact renewed, and they moved out. Discipline unbroken, legacy enduring in every step. In the end, one handler's stand against the midnight unknown fortified not just a tower, but the unyielding trust that held the ranks together. Subscribe for more stories of loyalty, courage, and justice within the ranks. Thank you for watching the case of Everyone Lost Hope at midnight until the SEALs K9 howled toward the old water tower. See you in the next one.